Okay, so she wanted a blue betta. Blue betta. God, I love blue. Well, oh, look at that tail. Wow. That one is gorgeous. Hello, this is welcome to my channel. We are deep in the beautiful waters of the Mermaid series, and today I'm working on a commission for a blue mermaid tail. So we're mermaid doll. We're going with the Blue Betta, and I'm an amateur mermaid, so I love looking up swimmable mermaid tails. I can't afford a silicone one, but they are gorgeous. Each one is unique. And this one by Mertailor, which is a fabric one, oh my god, that's like a dream tail. So as you can see, I've already started prepping my Laguna Blue here, and well, she had come to me in a lot of dolls that was for parts. She was missing part of a leg. So I went ahead and cut off her hair in preparation for taking that out for the reroute. And in the meantime, I drilled a hole, widened it, and then glued in the connector for my armature for her tail. Once that was cool and I put in epoxy sculpt, and then I started on the fluke design. I lost my last one, unfortunately. After I sandwiched 2 bits of blue performance fabric around the interfacing and around a little bit of wire, I went ahead and attached it to the end of my armature. I also connected the armature already to the doll, but you know what? That's too long. Let's shorten that. It took a couple tries, and I think I ended up taking it off camera. Well, I took off about an inch or so. There we go. Much better. Much more manageable. Still long, but gorgeous. Now it's time for batting. As you can see, I've used epoxy sculpt, or maybe thermoplastic. That might have been my thermoplastic. I used meltable thermoplastic to seal in the coupler this time. I was experimenting a little bit. It's great stuff. It's great for cosplay stuff. And these are just strips of quilt batting. I'm just winding around and around until I get the shape that I want. And then I glue the ends down with a little bit of hot glue. Once that's cool, I take out my fabric swatches that I've cut in the shape of my mermaid tail using a pattern that I've created. I am going to make a PDF for this as it was requested. It's just going to take me a little time because I have to do different sizes. But that should help if any of you want to try making your own. If you do make your own, please show me on Instagram. My Instagram is at DancingJohari as well. So I would love to see what you make, and I love reading all of your comments. Once the sides are pinned, I went ahead and sewed it up using the ladder stitch. And I secured it to the end of the fluke with a little bit of a modified ladder stitch, but that end of the fluke is just too flat. It's bothering me. I think sometimes I just need to remember to put in some fluff before I seal it up. So I opened up the seam a little bit and added in some fluff. This is leftover fluff from some hair wefts that I made from Cyrene and from the wig that I made for my mini-me. Once I get it to where I'm happy, I went ahead and sewed the sides back shut with my ladder stitch to make it a nice clean edge. My goodness, I love this fabric. If you're wondering where I got this fabric, I got it online from a fabric warehouse, like a fabric and bulk type place. I also get you can get all kinds of cool materials. Neoprene if you want to try making your own swimmable mermaid tail. Performance fabric if you want to make something for dancing, or you can also use it to make your own swimsuit. This is a type of performance fabric that was supposed to be turquoise, and when I got it, I said, that's not turquoise, that's blue. Once I was done with that, I went ahead and took up the transition with some epoxy sculpt and let it cure. I did have to sculpt a new belly button. Then taking rectangles of this beautiful shiny fabric that I had left over from a dancing costume I made for myself, I gathered up the one edge, folded it into a rectangle, gathered up the edge. Then I rounded the corners a little bit of each piece and sealed them with fray check. Once it was dry, I used a modified ladder stitch to attach it to the tail. And yes, there is a dorsal fin. The dorsal fin's a little different. I used the same material, but I sandwiched it around a piece of interfacing and easy steam. And ironed it shut. Now let's take off her factory paint. I've already moved all the plugs off camera. Sorry. We're jumping around a bit. I don't know about you, but I like the way they're painted, but at the same time, it's so much cooler painting it yourself. It's always neat to see how they look without the factory paint, because sometimes you could see, you know, things that you didn't see before, like sometimes they have a flaw, or sometimes there's just a really cool feature that you could have brought out more. Okay, that's done. Time for the reroute. We're going to use 3 colors. We're going to use clear skies, smoke, metallic blue sky, and smoke. We're going to use this to create a variant. So we're going to be switching back and forth between the colors, switching on one row between blue sky and smoke, and on the next row between metallic sky blue and smoke. So basically when I do a reroute, I just use my rerouting tool. I put a little bit of hair over the end of the loop or the hook, the broken eye of the needle as it is, because that's what I'm using. I'm using a needle that I cut and stab into the head, into the holes that are already there. And the reason I'm varying this, going back and forth between the colors, is it creates like a shimmer and highlights and lowlights, and it's just gorgeous. It almost looks like sea foam or light playing on the waves. I just keep going around and around and fill in the back, then I go up the sides, then I fill in the middle and fill in the part last. Part takes a while. Afterwards, I use Galaxy glue and a brush to secure the plugs into place. While that dries, let's have some variation, well, some paint rather, to the transition for the mermaid. We want to go from the plastic to the tail with more of a blue color, so yeah, it looks a little messy now, don't worry, we're going to fix that, but I like the way it shimmers. While we're at it, let's add a little bit of a gradient to the fluke. I also ended up adding a gradient to the base of the fins, and then later on I did a watered down dark blue to the edges of the fins and over the seams. It helped hide the stitches. But I also did some other things to help hide the stitches at the end too. Time for a face up. I masked off her hair and her hairline with a bit of spare cloth and a towel because her hair was so long. And I start using oil-free eyeshadow to start blushing her face. Originally I used blue on the lips, but I don't know. I think it's too much blue. I contour her face, including her nose and above her eyes. Along the bottom of her cheeks too, and of course on the lips and chin. Using pink eyeshadow, I blush over the nose and the tops of the cheeks in one color. I'm going for the way that Edelyn tends to blush her dolls. I really do like how she blushes her dolls. They look so beautiful and unique, but I still have a long way to go before I'm up to her level of art, I think. But this is my style, and I really like it. That dark blue on the chin. The blue on the lips is just too much. Let's put pink, a different shade of pink on her lips, and then the same blushing for on the top of the cheeks onto her chin as well. Much better. Doesn't look like a goatee now. Using the same a darker blue eyeshadow, I go ahead and start the shapes of the eyebrows and use my kneaded eraser to correct mistakes. Then using white eyeshadow, I add a highlight just below the eyebrow. Using a blue pencil, watercolor pencil, I begin sketching out her eyes, and including the folds above her eyes, the shape of the iris, the direction I want her to look. Okay, I don't put in the pupils right away, but I generally have an idea of where I want them. And for the eyes, let's go with pink. I could have done purple or green, but I wanted pink. It just seemed like a good way to add a little bit of interest to this palette because otherwise it's a lot of blue. It's kind of like, this is, you know, how Delightful went with her pink muse for her Sakura doll. This is my blue muse. Blue is my favorite color, and this commission, they really love blue just as much as I do, so they really wanted a lot of blue on her. Using a watercolor pencil, I also sketched in individual hairs on the eyebrows. Alright, sorry for the bad camera angle here. I was sketching some more on the eyebrows. Now using a white watercolor pencil, I add some more to the highlights. This is already after another coat of Mr. Super Clear, by the way. You use Mr. Super Clear to build up a tooth, so I started off with 2 coats. Then, every time I want to save a layer, I just go out and add another coat. Using a black watercolor pencil, I begin filling in the eyeliner. Then using purple, I sketch out the shapes of the eyes again. Better camera angle, but it's a little blurry, sorry. My camera's autofocus sometimes focuses on the wrong thing. Using white, I brighten up the eye whites and the sclera. I also use a little bit of pink to add a little bit of color to the sclera, just to show that, you know, this is an eye. I also used light blue to use for the waterline. Since she's got blue skin, I would figure she would have blue for her waterline. Now using a darker pink, I think this is a hot pink or almost a purple, I went ahead and began filling in the tops of the iris again, followed by a light pink at the bottom. I was trying to put in details here, but they ended up getting kind of lost over the layers. But don't worry, I get it back later. I just went ahead and filled in the bottoms with pink here. When you can't build up any more color, it's time for another dose of Mr. Super Clear, or another coat of Mr. Super Clear. Using a white pencil, I added highlights to the eyebrows and to the top of her lip. And then I darkened up her nostrils with a little bit of blue. After another coat, it's time to add a little bit more color to those eyeliners. I messed up a little bit on the shape there, so I'm going to correct that now. There we go. I know this looks a little disorganized. Why is she going back and forth so much? Well, it's because each layer is different, and each layer reacts a little differently, and it takes a while to build up colors. Now I'm sketching in those hairs again, and adding the highlights again to the eyebrows. It takes a while to get the desired color. And I was trying to add highlights with the watercolor pencil, and everything was starting to have trouble building up, but I just kept going at it. Sometimes I can do it with just watercolor pencils, but sometimes I need a richer color. This may be one of those times. Adding pink to the sclera and the corners of her eyes. A little more highlight under the brows. Now let's add some blushing to the tops of her eyelids. Normally I do this first, but I held it off. I think I was originally going to go for a natural look, then I decided no, she needs a little bit more color there. Just for fun. I didn't want to go too flamboyant, but at the same time, I was really inspired by Gem and the holograms from the 80s, so I decided to add a partial smoky eye underneath the eye. I didn't go too nuts with it, but I did want it there. I really like how it came out. Then with a different color, I also blushed the cheeks later. Well, tops of the cheeks. And let's add some real blush to those cheeks now. Using a bigger brush, I added her blushing in a different color pink. Yeah, much better. While I was at it, I went ahead and blushed the joints of her torso. And I also blushed around the gradient of the paint to help blend it a little bit better. This is one of those projects that's just was so much fun for me because I was working in so much blues and just letting my muse just run wild. Now, at this point, I was having no more luck with the watercolor pencils, so I switched to gouache, which is a type of watercolor. It's like a thicker watercolor is the best way to put it. It can be reactivated with water, which is awesome. Even if it dries out, it's still usable, just like a real watercolor cake would be. Taking my time, I also used a little bit of gouache to add those highlights to the eyebrows again. Cool thing is with gouache paint, it dries flat and it blends almost just as well as a watercolor pencil does, sometimes even better, depending on how you apply it and how patient you are with it. Now I'm adding folds again to the eyes in a darker color. Oops. Went a little wild on the one fold. And then after that, I used white gouache paint to add highlights just above the folds to make them, to just give it a little bit more color just above her eye. Something about this that just gives it more depth and makes it look more real. Now with white gouache paint, I add some delicate details to the irises, or I try to. Oops, that one got muddied. Let's try again. A little bit more highlight to the top of the eye, to the top of the lip. And now I got the details just about where I want them. I also added the eyeliner in gouache, but I'm going to go over it again. And I also added the eyelashes on the bottom. She's going to have 3D lashes, so I'm not going to add any to the top. I probably should have added highlights to the bottom lashes, though. Oops. I also added a little bit of detail also by putting a couple of dots into the sclera just to brighten those up a little bit. And then to give the top of the eyes a little bit of a shadow, I added a little bit of light gray watercolor pencil. I just lifted the color off with my brush, with a wet brush, and added it on. Now I'm just refining details at this point. Oops. Got a little wild in that one, so let's wipe that off. That's the cool thing about gouache. You can wipe it back off as long as you haven't sprayed Mr. Super Clear over it. Once you have a layer to where you're happy with it, you really should use a coat of Mr. Super Clear in between so you don't mess it up if you make a mistake. That has saved me hours of work. Adding in the irises and refining their shape. She has such a soulful look. That's something that a friend of mine said after I showed him a picture of her face. He said she has a really soulful look to her. Adding in those details one more time. I'm trying to get them as delicate as I can. And now once I'm happy with that, and I've given a couple coats of Mr. Super Clear to save all of my work, I am going to use a special top coat with shimmer in it called Dragonfly Glaze. I got this at my local hobby craft store. It comes in all kinds of different colors, and basically it's a color shifting top coat. It's clear, but it's got lots of different micro glitters in it. And depending on the ones that you pick, it'll give it a color shift from one end of the spectrum to the other. You can get it for all colors or rainbow. For this one, I went with the green violet and blue blend to go with the tail. After I get the body all done with that, with a couple coats of that, I went ahead and did the face too, avoiding the eyes. I want to use a different color on the eyes that's more purple because we really want to bring out those purples. So I'm going to use this instead of Liquitex varnish in just those areas. Now for her lips, I added some berry mica powder to soften it up just a little bit more. And I also used Liquitex varnish just on her lips. It's a gloss varnish, so that really helps. After that, I release her hair from the hair burrito and begin drawing on the scales with Jacquard Lumiere fabric paints, which are metallic, and a brush. I added highlights and shadows. Then I started adding in details to her fluke. I did not add any more details to the fins other than adding a little bit of shading to them because I did not want to take away from that shimmery fabric, and it already has all those little folds built right into that fabric, so I didn't want to take it away from that at all. I also used a little bit of burgundy here just to add a little bit of a color pop to the tail, to the bottom of the tail. Added in all the lines for all the little folds that are in a fin, and mapped out where the other points were going to be. It's not going to be on every little section. It's going to be on just certain ones. And filled them in with burgundy. Then I topped them with holographic gold purple. And here's that completed. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but this is after the front and back were both done. Now she needs a top, so I decided to crochet her with using thread and a tiny crochet hook. I have been crocheting since I was 16 years old. Mom taught me. And I make her a little triangle shaped top. I crocheted the jump rings right in as I made it. Once that's done, I go ahead and add pearls to her face. I let those dry overnight. Oops. And having acrylic nails on during this was a little bit hard. I'm trying to make my nails look nicer for you guys. Once that's done and dry, I add the eyelashes. These are Trios by Ardell's. I got these at Target. So I just had to put 2 clumps on each, and I glued them on using jewelry glue, as I did the stones. Also, we have reached 100 subscribers. I have a poll going on right now under my community tab, so please take a minute to vote. So far, we've only gotten 1 vote. There's different choices. There's a KP Creations doll choice. There's a tour of my pets for fun video. We could do a tour of my dolls, I guess. If that's not an option, just put a comment below and I'll count that as part of the votes. Once that's all done, it's just time to get her dressed. Her hair has been tamed already with a boil wash and allowed to dry overnight and combed out. I tie on her top and trim the ends of the ribbon and fray check them. Actually, I sealed them with a little bit of heat, sorry. Introducing Naya. Naya means sea foam. So I just figured that was appropriate for her. I took her to the beach, to one of the other beaches nearby my house, and have her gazing in a little pool at herself, as if she's never seen her reflection before. I hope you all really like how she came out. I absolutely love her. She came out so glittery and beautiful. And I used the same fabric to make my mini-me a little fabric tail. And I had gotten a mermaid top from Lady DynamiteCreates, so I made myself a crochet top and added the shell top to that so I can remove it, but this way I can still wear it. Don't we look cute together? Let's get the other girls in here. Well, not all of them, but some of them. Well, I hope that you enjoyed watching Naya's creation. She is a commission, so she isn't going to be staying with me, but maybe one day I'll make another one similar to her. I really do love how she came out. I hope that her new home really loves her, and I'm fairly sure they will. She's actually a present that my mom ordered to be made for a friend of hers. So she'll be going home to my mom, and then my mom will be giving her to her new owner. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and please vote on the community tab. I would love to see what you all would love to see to celebrate 100 subscribers. We are going to be closing the poll in September, so October and November we should do the celebration video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and bye.